In the quiet outskirts of Vancouver, a pig farm held a grisly secret that would shock the world. The farm, a grimy, manure-strewn plot of land, was the home and operational base of Robert Pickton, a man whose name would soon become synonymous with one of the most horrifying serial murder cases in Canadian history. Robert Pickton was a pig farmer by trade, a profession that would later take on a macabre significance. His life seemed ordinary, even mundane, until a routine police search for illegal firearms led to a discovery that was anything but. The officers were not prepared for what they would find on that fateful day. They arrived at the farm to conduct their search, expecting to find nothing more than a few unregistered firearms, but as they ventured further into the property, they stumbled upon something far more chilling. Scattered across the land amidst the muck and manure were human remains. The pigsties, usually a place for animal life, had become a gruesome graveyard. The bones belonged to indigenous women, their lives cut short by a man who had managed to hide his dark secret in plain sight. The discovery sent shockwaves through the officers. What they had initially dismissed as a routine search had turned into a grisly crime scene. The magnitude of the horror found on the farm was such that they quickly obtained a second warrant to investigate the property further. And as they delved deeper into the pig farm and its owner, they began to uncover a chilling tale of murder and cruelty that would shake the nation to its core. The horrors found at the Pickton pig farm were just the beginning of a chilling investigation. As the full extent of Pickton's gruesome deeds came to light, a question hung in the air. How could such a monstrous secret have been kept hidden for so long, right under the noses of the unsuspecting residents of Vancouver? Born to Canadian pig farmers, Robert Pickton's life was steeped in hardship and grime from the start. His birth date, October 24, 1949, marked the beginning of a life that would become synonymous with a gruesome tale of murder and horror. Raised by Leonard and Louise Pickton, Robert's early life was entrenched in the muck and filth of the pig farm. The stench of manure, the decay of dead animals, and the dirt of the farm clung to him, following him everywhere he went. At school, his unsavory aroma and perpetually dirty clothing made him a pariah among his peers, especially the girls. He was a social outcast, shunned and isolated. This was a world that didn't understand him, didn't want him, and this rejection would later fuel a monstrous rage within him. Yet it was not only the physical grime of his existence that shaped the young Robert. He was also under the significant influence of his mother, Louise Pickton. A dominant and imposing figure, Louise played a crucial role in shaping Robert's psyche. Her actions, particularly her involvement in the tragic death of a 14-year-old boy, Tim Barrett, in a hit-and-run incident, showed a chilling disregard for human life. This incident, where Louise, instead of helping the injured boy, pushed him into a deep slough, leading to his death, was a stark example of the grim environment Robert was raised in. This was a childhood devoid of warmth, empathy, or love. A childhood where respect for life was replaced with cold indifference and cruelty. A childhood where the line between life and death blurred amidst the grimy backdrop of the pig farm. This grim upbringing laid the foundation for the monster Robert Pickton would become. The seeds of his dark future were sown in the harsh soil of his past, nurtured by the grime, the rejection, the indifference, and the cruelty that defined his early life, a life that would eventually give rise to one of the most prolific serial killers in Canadian history. In the Pickton family, murderous instincts weren't unusual. On a fateful day in October 1967, Robert's brother Dave Pickton was behind the wheel of their father's red truck when he struck a 14-year-old boy named Tim Barrett. The boy, severely injured but alive, was left lying on the side of the road as Dave sped home to relay the dreadful news to their mother, Louise. What followed was an act of cold-hearted calculation. Louise and Dave returned to the scene of the accident. Louise, the matriarch of the Pickton family, looked over Barrett, still clinging to life. Without a trace of mercy, she pushed him into a deep slough running along the side of the road. The next day, Tim Barrett was found dead. An autopsy revealed that he had drowned, and while his injuries from the collision were serious, they were not fatal. This cruel act was a window into the dark world of the Pickton family. Louise Pickton, a key figure in her sons' lives, was not just a mother, but a teacher of cruel lessons. Her influence on Robert Pickton was profound. The disregard for human life that she demonstrated that day was a trait that Robert would later display on a much more terrifying scale. The death of Tim Barrett was a chilling precursor to Robert's future killings. It was a stark reminder that the seeds of violence can be sown early, nurtured by those who should be teaching empathy and respect for life. Robert was raised in an environment where life was cheap, where a young boy's life could be snuffed out to cover up a hit and run. In the shadow of his mother's heinous act, Robert Pickton was growing, absorbing, and learning. He was seeing firsthand that life could be taken without consequence, that one could play God and decide who lives and who dies. This was the twisted world in which Robert Pickton was raised, a world that laid the foundation for his gruesome future. With such a chilling family history, Robert Pickton seemed almost destined for a violent path. In the early 1990s, Robert Pickton began a horrific killing spree. A chilling chapter was about to unfold on a farm outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. Remote, secluded, and far from prying eyes, the farm became the ghastly stage for Robert's unspeakable acts. March of 1997 marked a sinister milestone. Robert was charged with the attempted murder of Wendy Lynn Eistetter, a sex worker who had the misfortune of crossing paths with him. The encounter was brutal. In a savage attack, Robert handcuffed Wendy and stabbed her repeatedly. But Wendy was a fighter. She managed to escape and, despite her injuries, succeeded in reporting him to the authorities. Robert was arrested, but the scales of justice didn't tip in Wendy's favor. The charges were dismissed, a decision that would have far-reaching and deadly consequences. It allowed Robert to slip back into the shadows, free to continue his horrifying deeds. In the wake of Robert's brush with the law, a farm worker named Bill Hiscox began to notice a disturbing trend. Women who visited the farm had a habit of disappearing. The unsettling pattern didn't escape his attention, and he reported his suspicions to the police. Yet the wheels of justice turned slowly, all too slowly. It wasn't until 2002, 5 long years later, that the authorities finally decided to search the farm. What they found would shake the nation to its core. But that's a tale for another time. The dismissal of charges against Robert, despite the damning evidence presented by Wendy, allowed him to carry on with his gruesome activities. It was a grave oversight, a missed opportunity to halt the murderous spree that would claim so many lives. Despite the red flags, Pickton's reign of terror was far from over. This chapter of Robert's life serves as a stark reminder of how crucial it is to take every accusation seriously, to treat every potential victim with respect and dignity. Because every time we fail to do so, we risk letting the monsters slip through the cracks. In 2002, the long overdue justice finally arrived for Robert Pickton. The law finally caught up to him on a chilly February day. Canadian police, armed with a warrant, descended upon Pickton's property. Initially, they were there for a simple raid, searching for evidence of illegal firearms, but what they stumbled upon was far more sinister. Among the grime and filth of the pig farm, they discovered items that didn't belong there. Personal effects, belongings that clearly didn't belong to Pickton. They were the silent screams of missing women, their presence a chilling testament to the grim fate they had met on this isolated farm. The magnitude of the discovery was so shocking that the authorities quickly obtained a second warrant. This time they were not looking for mere firearms. They were probing into the heart of darkness that Pickton's property had become. Pickton was arrested, initially facing 2 murder charges. But as the investigation delved deeper into the macabre rabbit hole, the body count rose. 3 more murder charges were added, then another and another. By 2005, a staggering total of 26 murder charges had been brought against Robert Pickton. This grim tally marked him as one of the most prolific serial killers in Canadian history. The details that emerged from Pickton's confession were as chilling as they were varied. The women had been killed in multiple ways. Some of them had been handcuffed and stabbed, mirroring the terrifying ordeal of Wendy Lynn Eistetter. Others had been injected with a lethal dose of antifreeze, a testament to Pickton's cold-blooded ingenuity. The man who had once been an unpopular pig farmer, constantly reeking of manure, dead animals, and dirt, had morphed into a predator of the most dangerous kind. His farm, once a place of mundane labor, had become a slaughterhouse for humans. Robert Pickton, one of Canada's most prolific serial killers, was finally behind bars. The justice system had finally caught up with him, ending a gruesome chapter in Canada's history.